Welcome to Talmudic Treasures. Today we're learning Ksubos page Tzadi Vav. We are going to begin on Tzadi Hamid Beis by the new parak. Almana nizaynis menechsi asaymim. So we know that a woman whose husband died, she continues to collect mazonos until her ksuba is collected. And she receives this form of mazonos from the estate of the asaymim. And because she does that, since she's receiving the mazonos, then masya dash sholahan. Then for her earnings are going to be given over to them. Vein chayavin b'kvurasa. However, if she dies, no longer do they have any obligation to bury her. Yarshi kasubasa are chayavin b'kvurasa. Rather, the inheritors of the ksuba are the ones that are going to be obligated in the kfura. So we said the ksuba is in lieu of, or some say the ksuba means the dunya, the dowry is in lieu of the kfura. Iboilhu. Nizaynis tanan o hanizaynis tanan. So what is this referring to? As we saw previously, when it comes to these two cities, Yehuda or Anshi Golil, so was it in the woman's, the almana's choice, whether or not she wants to continue collecting mazonos until she finally decides on her own to take the ksuba? Or do the asaymim have the ability to say, okay, I'm giving you the ksuba, that's it, and then she can go. And until then. So the question is, who has the authority to be able to decide when the ksuba should be given? Because once the ksuba is given, that's it. There's no more mazonos. So nizaynis tanan ka'anshi golil, maybe it's like the anshi golil, says Rashi, Anshi Gol Hoyakaisin Atahi Yisab Bevesi, you'll dwell in the house, Umitzana, and will provide you mazonos, Minachasai Kol Yimei Megar Armonosaich Bevesi. Or is it Odilma Hanizainis Tanan, Ukanchi Yehuda, the boy lo yoivla. If they want, they don't give to her, says Rashi, Hoyakaisin Anshir to Hayorshim Litin Lik Zibosech. The Yisomim only have to continue to give him mazonos until they themselves decide to give her the ksuba. They could simply just give them mazonos. Instead of giving them mazonos, they pay off the ksuba, and they won't have to give her mazonos anymore. So the question is, who, according to this Mishnah, are we saying it like? As we continue with Tzadi Vav and Alf. Tashma, come in here. Alma Rabbi Zera Omer Shmuel Metzias Almana. It says that if she finds an object, so the din is that almana keeps it for herself. Now, tanan shopper. If you want to tell me hanizaynis tanan, which is really it's in the hands of the assignment, fine. Eliyamrit nizaynis tanan, that it's really her that has the control. So nahavi kabal. So she should be just like a husband. We should say that just like when she finds an object when her husband was alive, that it goes to the husband, so too over here should go to the Yarshim. Says Rashi, shopper, why would we say that she keeps the mitzvah? So maybe because she's not getting the mazonos anymore. But if she's the one that decides, so the question is, why does she get to keep the mitzil, or she's still getting mazonos? So oilam emulach nizaynis tanan. Taimamayam rabbanim asiyasi shulabala. What's the whole reason why the husband gets an object that was found? To havi la'eva, because we don't want there to be anger and animosity in this relationship. After all, even though she's receiving mazonos, so he should get the masyadah. However, so in this situation, what's the big deal? They're forced to have to give the mazonos, so there's no need for them to have to. They're not, if there's tranquility between the assignment and the almana. The truth is that while she was married to her husband, all those different works which we mentioned about grinding and baking, she has to do the same thing for the Yorshim, because after all, they're giving her mazonos, with the exception of diluting cups of wine making the bed, and also washing the face, hands, and feet. Rashi says, Shehin malachos hamikarvos chiba v'hergo davar. Because these three things cause a person to feel emotionally attached to that person, as we saw at the very beginning of Masechta Daf Daled. She'ein nida oisa oisa l'bala. That a need is not allowed to do this for her husband because it's going to cause chiba, and they can end up having tashmish, which is the nida, which is obviously not allowed. Fine. So, Omer Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi, according to that same logic, we have this other piece. Kol malachos she'eben oisel rabo, any malacha that a servant does for his master, Talmud oisel rabo, student also can do to his teacher. There's no distinction, with one difference. Chutz mahataris minoil, the removing of the shoe. The removing of the shoe, we don't want them to do. It's TA20. Madu ein Talmud matir minol rabo umatay matir minoil. All right, let's continue with the Gemara first. So Amar Rabbi Lo Amarin. So Rashi says at least one reason right off the bat, because if you have him untie the teacher's shoe, Sharoy Omer Eved Kananihu, it gives the appearance that you're a slave. So we don't want to give that false impression. Amar Rabbi Lo Amarin. The only time we said this elba macham shein makirino, so in a place where it's not, they don't recognize them. Therefore, they could possibly mistaken him as an Eved. If everyone knows who this person is, so there's no need to be concerned. You know that this is a Talmud Rebbe relationship, and you could do it. Nami, even if a place where no one recognizes them, in which you could potentially be concerned, gee, maybe this is an Eved, that's only if the Talmud isn't wearing tefillin. Because as Rashi says, it's not the way of avodim to wear tefillin. So if you're wearing tefillin, that's a dead giveaway that you're really not an Eved, so it's not a problem. Okay. Rav Chia Barabo, Rav Yochanan, Kol hamoinea talmido mulashamsho, anyone who holds back the student from serving, ki'ilu moinea mimenu chesed. It's like you're holding back kindness. Shnemer lamas mereu chesed. Now, mas is usually a tax, but it also here means to hold back. You're holding from your friend from doing chesed. You're causing him to remove your shemayim. Let's look at Rashi first. Fine. So you also remove your shemayim. So you're forsaking the fear of Hashem. So by you allowing your Talmud to do these things, so then it's okay because it ends up causing him to have more Yerushalayim. Fine. Rabbi Lezer, Almana. Okay, hold off on that. Let's see the question. TA20. So he says like this. TA20. Kishra Omer Eved Kananihu. It looks like he's an Eved. Of a makam shmakirno so o kishamaniach tefillin lo yichashinan. However, if it's in a situation where, again, this is also question 13, where you clearly recognize this person or the person's wearing tefillin, so then there's nothing to be concerned about. Okay. All right. Weiter. So now going back to our Gemara. Omer Rebbe Lazar, Almana shetafsa metaltalin b'mizoneseha ma shetafsa tafsa. So if a woman grabs onto metaltalin, normally the almana, the shibud on the ksuba is only on karka, not on metaltalin. But here, if she grabbed onto metaltalin for her mizonos, so even the mizonos also is connected to the karka. What she did, ma shetafsa tafsa, says Rashi, v'mafkinimino, we won't take it away from her. The avli the paskinin hilchasa. Even though we learned previously in Daf Samach test, mikarkoi v'metaltali. Hoyev v'tafsa tafsa, when she grabbed onto it's fine. Tanami hachi, amana shetafsa metaltali mimizonaseh, ma shetafsa tafsa, fine. V'chein ki yasser abdimin omer maseh b'kalaso shel Rav Shabtai. So there was a story of the daughter of Rav Shabtai, shetafsa v'sikya. Malaya Meoi says she grabbed hold of a sack, says Rashi, sakshel or, a leather sack, which was filled with money. And the Chacham didn't have the ability to remove it from her hands because once she was typhus, we don't lo mafkin mina. Ravina v'lav Amron v'loy Amron. This is not said. This din el mazaini. Only if she grabs hold of metalton for her mazonos. If she ends up grabbing the metalton for her ksuba, that we will take away. What's the chiluk? We know that just like mazonos has to be from carcass, so too is the same thing by ksuba. So you should make the same. The dinim should be the same. So you're right. Even when it comes to ksuba, she takes the metalton, and what she takes, she takes. It was said like you. Rabbi Yosi ben Zimra. Let's say a woman waits 2 or 3 years. She's already been not married for 2 or 3 years. And she has not come for mazonos. Ibda mazonos. At that point already, she's lost the mazonos. So hashta shtaim ibda shlosh meboy. I don't understand. It says 2 or 3 years. So why does it say 2 or 3 years? Just say 2, and that would be enough. Kasha kan ba'niya kan ba'ashira. Depends if she's rich or poor. Says Rashi, Ashira hayochelas biyada lahamtin. A woman who's rich, she has the ability to wait a little bit longer. Hilkach inami lutava lamachilhi ad shoshan. It has to be 3 years. Avaniya medaloi tavasan mechaltan. A poor person who needs the money. So why is she not collecting? It must be she's moichel even after 2 years. Inami kan beprutza kan besnua. What is that? Rashi says a snua is boish level basin. She's embarrassed. The fact that she didn't come right away, then itself doesn't prove anything, because she's just a very humble woman. Omer Rava lo Amran. We don't say this whole concept elam afreya. Saying, says Rashi, oisen shtei shanim she'aver ibda, referring to the years that were past, that she can't collect those years. But she can still receive in the future. So if she didn't collect for 3 years, she can come back after those 3 years. She won't be able to get the back pay, but she'll get everything in the front, which is mashma. If she came within 2 years, you would have to even reimburse her retroactively. Fine. Let's look at question 14. Amanda shashasa v'loy tava mezainis kama zman tisha kadei denema v'yitra hifsida mezainis shal oisa zman. So it says, Aniya o perutza shtei shanim ashira o snua sholosh shanim. Okay. So the Gemara says like this. Boy Rav Yochanan, they ask a question. Yisaimim oimrim nisanuhu. Let's say you have this conflict. The orphans say, I gave her the value for the mazonos for l'shana haba, for next year. The omer saluna talti. She says, I didn't get it. So Almil Haviraya. So you have this conflict between the Alman and the Yisaimim. So who do we require to bring a proof to support each other's claim as we continue to study Velva base? So Nichse says Nichse Becheskas Yasmi Kaima. The Nichse Habal, the possessions of the husband, do we say they're in the possessions now of the Yisaimim? And therefore, because of the concept of Hamoitz Mechaver Alav Haraya, so because now it's been transferred over to the Yisaimim, so therefore maybe because of that, now the Almana has to prove. Maybe Pumfa Karet. Maybe it's actually in her hands, because Rashi says, because she has a ksuba. And Rashi says, Shahari Mishtabdu B'Tanai Beistin. That ksuba is linked to a condition of Beistin that she's entitled to that money. So maybe it's considered like it's key, like it's hers. So who's the one who has to bring a proof? Tashma. The Tani Levi. So Levi said as follows. Almana calls manshal nises. As long as she has not yet gotten remarried, al hayisaimim lohavi raya. Nises aleha lehevi raya. This is a question I just did not get right at all, which is TB21. So let's see what the question is. That exact question. So this is exactly what it says. TB21. Okay. If she didn't get remarried, then it's on the summon to bring a proof. Mashinisis, if she already got married, then it's upon her to bring a raya. Okay. Says Rashi, Nises v'hi ba with tavoyim mezainis shel shanim shaver. She wants to collect for the years in the past. She has to bring a proof. The Mishnah Nises, when she got married, in her nechasim b'rshusa. The nechasim are like not in her possession. Okay. Weiter. Rav Shimi barashi ketanoi. It's like it's a machlokas tanoim. Moicheres v'koiseves. A person sells and writes the following quote: Eilu mezainis macharti. These are the mezainis that I have sold. Or the Eilu ksub macharti. And these are for the ksuba that I sold. Divrei Rabbi Yehuda. So these are the words of Rabbi Yehuda. What is this referring to? So it says Rashi, v'koiseves eilu mezainis. Bishtaros hamachira. We're talking about these documents of sale. She koseves lekuchais, koseves al hamochel mezainis, ukshehi mocheres legiba ksuba. When she wants to come to collect the ksuba, tifarish b'sayich hashtar leksuba macharti. Fine. Rabbi Yosi omer mocheres v'koseves stam. All you do is just write it and sell it and write it stam. You don't have to add in Eilu Mazonos, Eilu Ksuba. You don't have to specify that these properties, she can come and collect them. Just write it stam, and we can understand that there's going to be a lien to those lands for the Mazonos and the Ksuba. V'chein koicha yafe, and so her strength is very good. So my law, b'hakamifki. Rabbi Yehuda, the Omer boy leferushe. Why does he have to specify what these are for the Mazonos, for the Ksuba? It must be because the possessions are really in the Soimim's property, the Al Halmanul Habiraya. And therefore we need the Almana to be able to bring a proof that she did not get anything. And therefore that's the reason why it's written that way. Rabbi Yossi, who just says just write it stam, you don't have to explain anything, just write it stam, because it's like it's in her hand, maybe the truth is it's considered to be in the hands of the Almana because she has a ksuba. And they some have to prove. So if that's the case, then what's this machlokas? Rabbi Yehuda, so according to Rabbi Yehuda, who says this whole notion about of adding it in the star, about this is for the ksuba, this is for the mazonos, it's not really necessary. Rabbi Yehuda eats a tavikamashwan. It's still good advice. Still likrua Rav Senusa. So you should not be called Rav Senusa, means someone who's like starving and someone who just eats a lot. So it's Rashi Haroya, so one who sees Shemocheres Kol Karkois. They sell all their land. Elu Savar Shemachartan Lumazainis. It seems like you sold it for food. Moitzele Hashem Rav Senusa. And therefore people are going to think that you're just a glutton. Vishuv ein Adam Naisa. And therefore no one's going to want to marry you afterwards. So therefore, it's better that you should write, no, this is not all for Mizonos, it's also for the Ksuba. If you don't want to tell me that this is the situation, that the reason of Rabbi Yehuda is not because the Chasim is Mecheslas Yisayimim, so Hadaboy Rabbi Yochanan. This is a question Rabbi Yochanan asked. Tivshul Memasnisen. When he asked the question of who has to bring a proof, you could just simply answer it from here. Mocheres l'mezainis shloba beistin. If let's say you sell Mazonos not in Beistin, but Kosevis, you should write, quote, El Mazonos Macharti. So, l'chor, that's very clear that it must be the fact that you need to specify. L'chor, then itself, as we said, is a raya that it's really b'cheskes yasmi kaima, and therefore that she has to bring a proof. El mamasnis lekel mashmina. The itzatavi kamashma chanam itzatavi kamashma. Just giving good advice. Inam dekol yalma nes b'cheskes yasmi kaima. Really, everything belongs in the hands of the assignment. Behind Taimid Rabbi Yosi. So there, why does Rabbi Yosi says write it stam? Kidabai kshisha. Do you remember by kshisha? Moshel Rabbi Yosi luma hadavidaima. What is he comparable to? What parable? L'shchimira. You have someone who is dying. She omer tenu mosayim zuz l'ploini. And he says on his deathbed to give 200 zuz to Pliny. So Balchlevi, because I owe him money. So Ratza b'chayvo noitlan Ratza b'matana notlan. You can give it to him as a chayv that you're paying him off loan, or you could frame it as a matana. As we continue with Sadi Zanim and Aleph, ima matana notlan lokach yafe koichai. If it was given as a gift, then wouldn't his koyach be strong? Says Rashi, shiyochel litrof l'kuchos al choiv. Because if there was an actual chov, so then you can collect from l'kuchos, because you're someone that's owed money. V'yochel litrof al matana. But you can't do it if you have a gift. Av zu al hamazonos l'tuchel litrof. So when it comes to mazonos, you can't collect from l'kuchos. Ve'al haksuba titrof osam. Fine. So that is the, again, lav dafka do we have an answer either way, but perhaps this is just coming to tell you this idea that it's a tova kamash malon, that it's better that it should be written this way. Otherwise, either Rav Sanusa, because people are going to end up thinking ill about her, or as we said, this other pshat, Rabbi Yosi, is comparable to this mashal of Rabbi Yosi. Ad kan.